What's up, everyone? DJ Short here, joined by Eric Samulski. We're back for our live fantasy baseball Q&A. Thanks for tuning in. Excited to do this one today. We have about 45 minutes. I feel like we've been running with these recently. Depending on how many questions we get. We already have a bunch of questions in the queue, but
Nice.
don't be discouraged. Feel free to add yours to the list, and we will have a good time here this afternoon. Eric, welcome.
Well, thank you, sir. Welcome to you as well. We were just talking about it's the moods are up. The sun is out. The Knicks are 1-0 in the playoffs in the second round.
Man.
The Mets are about to maybe take
Messing.
Scott out of the rotation.
Mets are messing.
But they won yesterday. We're feeling good over here in New York.
Yeah, Tyler McGill had his first rehab start today, or it wasn't his first, but he's progressing and he pitched well. So the Mets may have a tough decision to make soon. The Knicks are gonna probably give me a heart attack here soon. It feels like every game they play there's just so much drama.
Well, DJ, there's not drama if you listen to people on Twitter, because obviously it's fixed.
Oh yeah.
For the Knicks to advance. And that's the only reason they beat the Sixers, and that's the only reason they're winning. But yeah, I mean, the calls in yesterday's game were entirely questionable. And I don't think anybody argues against that. It was pretty poor officiating across the board in the fourth quarter. And but the Knicks get the win, and we'll see what happens in the next game.
So let's get started. Like I said, we'll be here for a while, so feel free to add your questions to the queue. We'll try to get to them. Try to get to as many as we can, if not all of them. So let's get started here. Dave with the question: is the Orioles staff legit, especially John Means and Kyle Bradish? I would say yes. Bradish pitched surprisingly well in his return. I was not expecting that. I mean, you could say the same for John Means, who didn't have great numbers on his rehab assignment, and then he comes out and pitches brilliantly. Bradish rostered in all competitive leagues already. Means not necessarily. So as far as it's any kind of actionable advice, what do you think about John Means?
Yeah, so I had a really good conversation with Nick Pollock of Pitcher List about this yesterday, because I focused a lot on Means' stuff, like his movement profile, his velocity, all of that. And I was like, okay, it seems very similar to John Means of years past, right? The changeup was 2 miles an hour harder, but nothing else looked meaningfully different. So it was kind of like, okay, you're going to get, like your 8K per 9 version of John Means. And if you liked him before the injury, you'll like him. And if you didn't like him, you won't. And Nick was kind enough to point out to me that actually there was a pretty massive change in terms of just like Means' intent. That again, we're talking about one start here, but John Means had his four-seam fastball up in the zone almost 64% of the time in that first start, and it was like around 40% in years past. And he was burying his slider, really getting the slider like inside on righties as well, but burying the slider and the changeup like out of the zone low as opposed to just in the zone. And then so like, Nick uses the term like Blake Snell blueprint with that, but it's basically like fastballs up and off speed down.
Yeah.
And that had been a blind spot for me. I guess I didn't realize that was a major shift for John Means. And so that has me going like, okay, maybe if you're doing that, he has like really good vertical movement on his fastball. So if he does keep it up in the zone, like 2/3 of the time, that maybe that actually will tick up the strikeouts a little bit. He's never pitched in Baltimore with the new dimensions for like a meaningful period of time. So that could help the ratios as well. And so like I said before, I would take a gamble in all league types because why not? And now I feel a little more confident that like maybe you don't start him against the best offenses, but maybe he's just on your roster the whole season.
Yeah, especially for home starts and, good offense backing him. I feel like he's someone you should be rostered most of the time. You can pick and choose when you want to play him. But a question about Means, because there's similar rostership numbers here. John Means or Brian Wu? Wu's returning from the
Woo.
injured list this week.
Just Woo. But this is first of all, I was high on Brian Wu coming into the year. He was like around my SP 30 or something like that. Wu has a pitch, like with Wu's fastball, like Wu has a pitch that John Means doesn't have. Like he has a pitch, like a stud pitch, and John Means doesn't have that. I also tend to be like a strikeout guy. Like I will always lean toward the guy who will get more strikeouts or has more like swing and miss stuff if you're making that kind of toss up to me. My question to you, in a redraft format, you said there was nothing actionable about Bradish. In a redraft format, would you be trying to trade him because he looked good in that first start? Because we're not really sure what's going to happen with the elbow. And like maybe you have people now going, oh, he's healthy. And maybe you get out of it from underneath it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, let's say you fell into some good luck with an early waiver wire pickup while you're waiting for Means to get healthy. And you have maybe some, it's hard to say excess with starting pitching these days. There's been so many injuries, but if you're in a good situation, I could definitely see doing it because I don't think I still think there's plenty of concerns as the season moves along with Bradish for sure.
But there's a realistic outcome that like Bradish was your SP2, right? Your second starting pitcher you drafted. Later on in the draft, you drafted like Jared Jones, Chris Sale, like Shota Imanaga, like guys
Jack
who were
Flaherty
all
off waivers,
Jack Flaherty, right? Guys who were all like SP3s or later. And now all of a sudden you have Bradish coming back, but you're like, okay, like Sale and Jones and Imanaga are all basically like SP2s in fantasy right now. Like you could flip that out and you'd probably be fine.
Another pitching question from Rhina. What do you think of Taj Bradley? Would you drop Yusei Kikuchi or Jameson Taillon for him? Bradley's kind of weird last year where like the strikeout to walk ratio numbers were good, but the results weren't always there. I'm inclined to say I wouldn't drop either of those pitchers for him. Curious, what do you think?
I think in a 15-team league, it's harder for me to drop two pitchers who I know are pitching well and are, in Taillon's case is on a team that I really trust. In a 12-team league, considering I'm assuming you didn't draft Jameson Taillon, you picked him up before he was going to be activated, I'm okay, I think, swapping Taj Bradley for Taillon, and I really like Taillon. But in a 12-team league, I'm happy to chase upside. I would not be dropping Kikuchi at all right now. Like Yusei Kikuchi was great last year. He tried to make an adjustment this year and like add in a changeup early on, and it didn't go well. And he went back to just doing what he did last year. And he's been, I don't think people realize how good he's been.
Yeah, underrated for sure.
And considering that's building off of a really good year last year, like Kikuchi is a top 30 starting pitcher for me right now, and I'm not dropping him anywhere.
Speaking of potential drop, Jada with a question. Wyatt Langford dropped in my 12-team head-to-head keepers league, so not a redraft. Claim and stash and burning a bench spot is the question. Given that this is a keeper league, I'm a little bit more inclined to say, sure, go for it.
Yeah, I think the normal caveats apply, right? Like how many players can you keep? Obviously we know dollar amount there. It's like it's $8. That's a super affordable way to keep Wyatt Langford. How big is the bench, right? Like I don't have a problem burning a bench spot on Wyatt Langford if you know you're going to keep him next year. Like if you get to keep like 7 to 9 players and you're looking at the rest of your roster and you're like, this guy is a keeper, because I think you have to expect that they said he's out for a month. I think he's going to get a long rehab assignment because he wasn't exactly tearing the cover off the ball anyway. I don't know if coming off a knee injury or a hamstring injury, he's going to run when he gets back, and he wasn't really running to begin with. So I think you have to be okay getting nothing for 2 months from a bench spot, and only you know that based on your league size and where your team's at right now.
Right. But yeah, if you have some flexibility right now, like why not? And then just kind
Yeah.
of see how things play out. Right.
Yeah.
Or you could trade them to someone else
The
who
interesting thing is it says burning a bench spot, which would imply to me there's no IL spots. So that's an interesting wrinkle as well. But again, like if you feel like you're in a good spot now, you can always pick him up and then just say, I can't do this in a month if you can't do it anymore.
Question from Joe: what's wrong with Yordan Alvarez? All of his production has come in like 4 games. That might be a bit extreme, but
Sure.
the numbers haven't been exactly what we expected. But if I go to Baseball Savant and I look at the expected numbers,
Mm-hmm.
they're not terrible. He's striking out less. Average exit velocity is right where it's usually is. His expected batting average is 290. I know like the hard hit rate is down a little bit. Expected weight on base average is down. That sort of stuff. So maybe not quite the power production. But I don't think anything is wrong with him. Have you noticed anything?
No, I'm doing my cursory check right here. When I want to see like if a player is doing anything different. The big thing that stands out to me is that he's chasing outside of the zone more. His up almost 4. His O swing is up almost 4%. His swing rate overall is up 3%. So he's being more aggressive. He's making more contact. He's making more contact overall, making more contact in the zone, making more contact outside of the zone. His swinging strike rate is like really low for a guy with that kind of power. It's possible he's being a little bit over aggressive. And while he's making contact, he's not able to make the type of contact we're used to seeing that leads to home runs. Now, it's important to understand like a 13% barrel rate is good. Pitcher List has a stat called ideal contact rate, which includes like really hard hit ground balls. And Alvarez's numbers are almost exactly the same as last year. So he's still making meaningful and authoritative contact. It's possible that he's expanding the zone a little bit too much in the sense that contact is leading to his homer to fly ball rate being just 14% when he's a career 31% guy.
How much of this do you think is situational of like the Astros struggling to begin the year and him potentially feeling like he needs to chase a little bit more to produce?
I always go to that. Like I always go to, if a guy's expanding the zone when he doesn't need to, why does he feel pressed to expand the zone? Another thing that's probably worth looking into is he's being pitched up in the zone. Pitcher List has his high location. So pitches that he faces that are, quote, high in the zone at 38%. It was under 30% last year. So he's being attacked up in the zone a lot. And we've kind of seen this happen with Spencer Torkelson this year too. So that's why like Yordan Alvarez's fly ball rate is up, but his exit velocity on fly balls and line drives is down. And so that says to me like he's being pitched up in the zone more. It's leading to more fly balls, but he's not hitting those fly balls as hard, probably because he's not getting on top of them in the way that he normally would. And so maybe he just needs to adjust to the way pitchers are attacking him. I'd imagine since his O swing is up, he's probably chasing pitches up high out of the strike zone more than he was before, and he can make contact on them, but it's just not as meaningful contact. But I trust him as a hitter to make that adjustment.
Figure it out. Yeah. Question from Rhino on one of the early waiver wire success stories of the season. So I was lucky enough to pick up Andy Pages when he got the call. Do you think his production so far is legit, or should I look to sell high on him while he's still new and hot? In my kind of cursory experience so far in this season, I feel like Outfield is not great.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's tempting to say sell high, I think it depends on your situation. I also think that what's interesting about what Pages has done so far, he's walked just once, I think in almost 80 plate appearances. So he's being very aggressive. When does the league adjust to that? Now he's had high walk rates in the
Right.
minors, north of 10% regularly, which is good. So I don't think he's as aggressive as it may seem right now, but I am kind of fascinated by that he's only drawn one walk so far. Is that a
And
warning sign?
it came last night too.
Right.
So I tend to kind of agree with what you're saying, and Scott and I talked about this on the podcast too, where it's just I just think I think he's being pitched in the zone a lot. Like I think pitchers are basically coming at him and saying, "We're going to see if you can hit," and he's hitting, and so he hasn't needed to draw walks. And we know in his minor league profile that he's happy to draw walks. Um, his contact, his contact on pitches outside of the zone is over 2/3 of the time. So he's not swinging at pitches outside of the zone he can't hit, which means pitchers aren't really trying to get him to chase yet. And I think they might. And we'll see how he adjusts. I have confidence that he can based on his profile. But I will just say in general, like my strategy is I never think it's a terrible idea to look to sell high. I think identify some outfielders who have struggled to start the year, and see if maybe you can do like an outfield for outfield swap, or throw in a pitcher that like maybe you're getting a bigger name outfielder, but you're giving up a slightly better pitcher and getting back a pitcher that you like, but is maybe like a little bit of a downgrade. And you start to look at outfielders like nobody's going to give you Anthony Santander straight up. But if you work out a deal with Santander, who is off to a slow start, if I'm looking at like other slow start outfielders, it's like I'm not really keen on like Lars Nootbaar, MJ Melendez, guys like that. But I think you could try to make you could look at some of these other slow start guys like a George Springer and try to work out a deal where maybe you're getting an outfielder that you might like who has a longer track record and giving up pies.
Right. Brandon Nimmo might have fell into that category, but he's turned it on in recent days. He's been hitting the ball hard. Maybe there's still a bit of a small window because I think his fantasy upside, if he doesn't run, is kind of limited. But you might have a chance there too. I'm gonna let you take this one. I'm gonna actually go back-to-back questions from Dad because we are also dads. Two good questions he has here. What is your rest of season outlook on Kutter Crawford, who goes up against the Braves tonight? So a good test for Crawford.
I'm big in on Kutter Crawford. I think the rest of season outlook is going to be worse than what he's currently done, but that's because he has a 1.56 ERA right now.
Yeah.
I think this is a guy who, his strikeout minus walk rate isn't elite. And so I think that he's a really solid pitcher, but he's a little bit like, not that he is Chris Bassett, but he's Chris Bassett-ish in the sense that that he throws 6 pitches and none of them is a stud offering. And I think that gives him a relatively safe floor because I think he can go to different pitches at different times. But I don't know that when you get an offense like I'm sitting him against the Braves, and I'm in a daily moves. I'm sitting him in a daily moves league where I can just say, okay, today I'm okay with where I'm at on my innings limit. I'm just not going to run the risk because when he doesn't have a pitch where I know that like if he's facing Acuna, he can go to this and it's going to mitigate the damage. Like I think there's going to be some tough starts down the road. But I wouldn't be like actively looking to get rid of him.
Yeah, same. I like this one because we can talk about our own teams a little bit. What are some waiver moves you guys have made this week? So in TGFBI, I'm killing it with the pitching categories, and I have maybe the worst offense in my league. So I was able to get Kyle Manzardo, and I know he went over 3 with 3 strikeouts in his debut, but still, I'm hopeful that he can make a difference for me. In Tout Wars this week, I picked up Jordan Beck, and I also got Cooper Criswell, who gets a start against the Nationals this week. Maybe not officially announced, but projected to start against the Nationals. Yeah, I mean, I think Criswell will turn into a pumpkin at some point, but he's on a pretty good roll. So I said, why not? I have 5 or 6 pitchers on the injured list right now in Tout Wars. So I needed to fill a spot just to have someone to start this week. So Criswell's the guy.
Let's see. I was in on Christian Scott everywhere I could have been. I didn't get him anywhere except for actually TGFBI. Where I'm first in my league. Yay. And so I like that. I had some 2-start pitchers. Simeon Woods Richardson I added for his 2-start week last night.
Yep.
Worked out well. Sadly, I added Colin Ray for the Brewers for his 2-start week, and then they've kind of announced they're calling up Robert Gasser to pitch later in the week. So Colin Ray is not going to get 2 starts. He's going to get 1.
Yeah. Do you believe in Colin Ray? He's off to a good start this season.
Not really. I don't believe in him in the extent that like I am running to pick him up, but he had the Royals and the Cardinals in a 15-team league for 2 starts. I was happy to pick on the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And then I got I needed some closers in some places. I got Jeff Hoffman where he was available. I think that he's emerging as the leader in Philadelphia. And then I was able to pick up Alex Lang a few places. Jason Foley's velocity is way down. He's not really getting a lot of swing and misses on his sinker anymore. He's been pretty iffy of late. Alex Lang's command has seemingly got in order. Now we see that command fluctuate all the time, but I think there's a chance that kind of shifts to a committee situation in Detroit, and not necessarily just Lang. And then I picked up Michael Massey a few places. I stashed Shane Baz a few places. I think it's time to stash him. And then an AL tout, it worked out for me yesterday, but I picked up Johnny DeLuca, who I think may be the center fielder in Tampa.
There you go. I have a question about Johnny DeLuca. Is this someone we overlooked? And is he worth a bench spot in a 10-team Roto OPS league? 10-team, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and we didn't overlook him. He was hurt, right? So DeLuca was part of the package that came back to Tampa Bay in the Tyler Glasnow deal, and he was hurt, and so he didn't, he didn't make the major league roster at the beginning of the season. I was interested in him because I think he plays good enough defense in the outfield that even though he's not Jose Siri in center field defensively, he is a good enough major league center fielder, and I think he's a much better overall hitter than Siri. And it's only 1 game with Josh Loback, so we have to just kind of like add that small sample size. But they shifted DeLuca to center, and I think that's a signal that like maybe they're going to see if he can run with that job instead of Jose Siri, and then Jose Siri is like a 4th outfielder, pinch runner, that kind of vibe. DeLuca was pretty good in the minor leagues for the Dodgers, but he's not somebody who I'm running out and getting. Like I picked him up in my AL only league. I haven't picked him up anywhere else yet. I would be interested in a deeper format, but I need to see how the playing time shakes out this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more of a deeper, like 5 outfielder type of league that you take a chance on him. But like you said, it's pretty interesting that Josh Lowe comes back and DeLuca's in the lineup. Siri's out. Siri, I mean, he just strikes out so much that the defense has to be so good in the base running to offset that. And not to say Siri doesn't have some power, because he certainly does. He hit 25 home runs last year, and from a fantasy perspective, you like that along with the speed. But yeah, there are definitely some flaws to his game. So another question here. I have a hole at my middle infielder, second base position. My only folks at that position are Stott and Witt, which isn't so bad. Help me choose between Sedan Rafaela, Massey, Toro, and Estrada. Yeah, it's not super easy.
Yeah. It's all.
I
I mean,
think
I like Rafaela. I'm a Red Sox fan. I like Rafaela. I think he's the third maybe on this list for me. I if you are thinking more like kind of long term ish, I do like his power speed combo a little bit. I think the swing is a little long, and there are some issues there. I coming into the season, I would have been like, it's very clearly Tyro Estrada.
right.
It's been a rough start to the year for him, even though he does have his highest barrel rate ever, which is, I mean, it's 7, but again, high barrel rate. Looks like he's, still making really good overall contact, really good zone contact. He's swinging and missing less. He's possibly being a little too passive, like a lot of called strikeouts. I think I would still lean toward Estrada, Massey, Rafaela, Toro, I think is how I go.
Yeah, I think I'd go Estrada too, with like at least there's the track record of success there. There's some speed that gives him a floor at least, and I would think he'll maintain a pretty prominent spot in that lineup. So he would probably be my first two. I think you could, I could take it or leave it with Massey or Rafaela. I like both
Yeah.
of them. So I think we
I will
mostly.
say if Luis Garcia is out there, I would put him first. I've kind of been banging the drum for Luis Garcia for a while. And I did my Rotoworld, fantasy baseball ad drop, which will be up on YouTube later today or tomorrow. So make sure you check that out. But Garcia is only rostered in 26% of Yahoo leagues as of this morning. So depending on your league type, I think he's available, and he's been really good this year.
He has been very good. Paul Goldschmidt question. Looks like Goldschmidt is over the hill and Carroll's still hurt. I kept Carroll, which you should absolutely do. But should you cut bait with Goldie? So I'm looking at Matthew Poliat's first base rankings for the month of May. These are rest of season rankings, and these were posted 5 days ago, I want to say. So he has Goldschmidt ranked 13th, and DHs are included in this ranking. So he has him right below Vinny Pasquantino and Christian Encarnacion Strand, above Eloy Jimenez and Isaac Paredes. Is that too optimistic because of the track record? I mean, I look at him as maybe the way things have gone, like corner infielder, but not someone I'm really counting on to be my top first baseman. But has he fallen that far in such a short amount of time?
He's so interesting to me. I can't figure it out. I look at, so the notion is, okay, Paul Goldschmidt is toast, right? Well, if Goldschmidt was toast, why is his exit velocity on fly balls the highest it's been since 2021?
Yeah.
He's averaging 91.1 miles an hour average exit velocity on fly balls, and that's pretty good. His ideal contact rate is 45%, the highest it's been since 2021. So the quality of contact metrics there suggest that it's not like he doesn't have anything left in the tank. He's swinging and missing more. He's swinging and missing more without chasing too much more. So it's like he's swinging and missing in the zone. So maybe he's getting beat a little more. But then I look at like how he's being pitched. And he's being pitched low and away a lot more than years past, which to me signals more breaking balls. And I would need to like go into this and look and see like, okay, is he not gassed? Like people are blowing fastballs by him, but is he just like not hitting breaking balls this year?
Yeah.
And that would be why his swing and strike rate is up. So there's all these things where it's like, I'm not ready to drop him because I'm not ready to say Goldschmidt was like taking the Jose Abreu path. But I think that if you can find somebody else to play first base for a little bit, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about Pete Alonso and his slow start as well. He's really been awful for a couple of weeks now. So in addition to, I mean, it's related in a way. His quality of contact is way down so far this season. His average exit velocity is 85.9 miles per hour, which is like so shocking to see for Pete
Yeah.
Alonso. But he's being pitched low and away. His on breaking balls, he's getting killed. He's hitting 136. Whereas last year, like at least he was over 200, which is fine, respectable. But just not hitting those pitches right now. So I think it's one of those things where he's going to have to adjust. We know Pete Alonso is going to make hard contact eventually.
Right.
Go ahead.
So I was looking. So this year, Paul Goldschmidt is seeing 4% fewer fastballs, 4% more off-speed pitches. This year, his expected batting average on fastballs is 285. Last year, it was 284. This year, his expected batting average on off-speed pitches is 155. Last year, it was 320. He's swinging and missing far more overall, but it looks like his performance against off-speed pitches is much, much, much worse this year, and he's seeing more off-speed pitches, perhaps as a result. So, again, it's hard to determine like why that is. Maybe he's worried about losing the ability to catch up to fastballs, and he's sitting on fastballs, and he's getting carved up by off-speed. Like unless we talk to him, we don't really know. But to me, a hitter with that track record who's hitting so much worse than normal against off-speed pitches but not fastballs doesn't necessarily signal an age issue like it might if he was just like late on all fastballs.
Got it. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't drop him. That's probably I would try to be as patient as I could. It's amazing how much like fantasy baseball analysis has changed, where when I first started in the industry, which was like 2009, it was kind of like I'm not making any major decisions before Memorial Day. I just don't think we really had the data at that time. Like Fangraphs had started, and you could kind of see like, oh, his fly ball rate is this, his infield fly ball rate is this, his BABIP is this. We just didn't have as much data, where I was just very reluctant, and I'd be like, okay, look at the back of the baseball card and like he'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We have more information now, but even still, with like a player like Goldschmidt who won the MVP 2 years ago, I'm just very reluctant to drop him at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Up next, when the heck is Junior Caminero getting the call? And this is the interesting part too. Would you drop Jackson Chourio for him? Huh.
Not till he's up, at least for that part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in theory, like Caminero's, especially recently, doing everything he can to earn it. Like he's been on a really good roll at the plate. I think it's where he's going to fit in this Rays lineup, like how they're going to maneuver things, I think is a question. But I think the Rays offense hasn't been that great anyway. They did sweep my Mets over the weekend. And they did have a game where they scored 10 runs, if I remember right. But anyway, by and large, they've not been good. So I think they will need this lift. I think sooner rather than later. It's hard to say when it'll happen, but it's one of those things where I feel like it could happen any day. I think it depends on your team need, because at least with Chourio, there's some speed element to his game, and as we've learned with some of these young players, like nobody is a sure thing. So to me, it just kind of depends on what you need. And also because Jackson Chourio already signed this extension, I don't think he's going anywhere, which I think is an important part of it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that I don't think Chourio's going anywhere. Oh man, it's tough because like Paredes isn't going anywhere for the Rays. Junior Caminero is not good enough defensively to play short or second. Brandon Lau is going to come back at some point anyway as well. I feel like it's a DH only spot for Caminero. They're not going to move Paredes to first base because even though Yandy Diaz is struggling, like Yandy Diaz isn't leaving that lineup right now. So I think it seems like I'm only a matter of time before he DHs, but then every time you say that, like yesterday, everybody is like, why is Harold Ramirez still in this lineup? Like he's doing nothing productive. And then Harold Ramirez goes out yesterday and he goes 4 for 4 with 3 runs, an RBI, a stolen base. And you're like, okay, maybe that bought him, the rest of the week. Who knows? So I think it's only a matter of time. I think I would have Caminero over Chourio if I felt like they were both going to be up all year, but like we just don't trust that with the Rays.
Right. Michael with a question. It's kind of there's a two-part basically. Have Adolis Garcia, Soto, Schwarber, Kauser, and Pajes in a 3 outfielder league. Would you drop one for a pitcher like Taj Bradley or Braxton Garrett? He also mentioned he could drop Andres Jimenez or Reese Hoskins. Kauser's cooled down quite a bit recently, so there's that.
I'd still be no on Braxton Garrett. Like just no. I'm not dropping
14 strikeouts in a rehab start against the low A competition. Doesn't get you excited?
I'm not dropping any of those guys for a pitcher who has continuously dealt with dead arm and might at any point in time. I would much rather try to trade those guys away. I don't know that any of them is an outright drop. I understand the concerns on Kauser. Weirdly enough, like over the last 2 weeks when he's hitting 139, he has 11 hard hit baseballs and a 21% barrel rate, and he has 4 hits. That doesn't feel sustainable. So I do think that like we're going to get another solid stretch of Kauser. I think that most people expected, his really hot start was not his true talent level. And the same way, like, I don't think this is his true talent level. Like he has a lot of power and he will strike out some, but I think he's going to hit. And he's still hitting well right now. Also, he has a 14% walk rate over the last 2 weeks, even when he's hitting 139. So it's not like he's making consistently terrible swing decisions. I would try to like trade Schwarber or Pajes. I don't think you're going to get a lot for Kauser right now, and see if you could open up a spot. But I also don't think Taj Bradley, because he's a lot more intrigue than he is current production. I don't know that he's somebody you have to make a drop in order to force him onto your roster.
Right. I would say Bradley and Garrett are kind of like they're fringes of your roster, and we see if they can take that step forward. Here's a good question from Pistol RX. Drop Luis Severino to pick up Christian Scott.
Yes.
That is a tough one, because I think the upside of Scott is higher than Severino. Like, let's say Scott was guaranteed to stay up the rest of the season. Like, I think Scott could be a top 60, top 50 pitcher potentially. I don't think Severino has that in him at this point, but Severino has the stable rotation spot with the $1 million contract. There are multiple pitchers on their way back for the Mets, and it's kind of like, where are all these guys going to go when they're healthy? But then again, I think in this scenario, I would drop Severino and pick up Scott, because I think Severino is so replaceable that you go with the upside of Scott, and even if he gets sent down, like you'll survive.
Yeah, I don't believe in what Severino's doing. And that's not to say like I'm not actively trying to drop him wherever I can, but I think for a guy with the upside of Scott, I would make that drop. I mean, Severino has a 2.93 ERA. He has a 4.02 Sierra. So Sierra doesn't really believe in him. He has a sub 12% strikeout minus walk ratio. That's not ideal. He has a 10% walk rate. And so Pitcher List has this new stat they call striker, which is basically just strike percentage minus ideal contact rate. So it's like how often do you throw strikes, and then subtract that from how often is a ball hit hard off of you. And Luis Severino's striker rate is 171st among qualified starting pitchers. That's not
Wow.
good.
Yep.
He's not throwing a lot of strikes, and he's giving up a lot of hard contact, generally speaking. None of his pitches makes me go, oh man, this pitch is like really good. And so, again, I'm not like actively trying to drop him, but I don't mind gambling on a high upside guy for him.
Last question here, and it kind of ties a bow on some of questions we've answered throughout this throughout our Q&A today. Somebody dropped you Darvish in my league. Would you drop Yusei Kikuchi, Jameson Taillon, Kyle Bradish, or Ryan Wu for him?
I think I go back to Taillon here. I think I like. Oh man, I think I like the other three more than you, Darvish. Kikuchi is really close because I, coming into the year, would not have liked Kikuchi more than Darvish, but Kikuchi has been really good, and Darvish, even before getting hurt, was a little questionable. I think the Bradish move is like you're going to keep Bradish over Darvish, and if Bradish gets hurt in 2 weeks, you're going to be like, "Damn it, why'd I do that?" But you have
Mhm.
to. And I like Wu more, so I think you drop Taillon for Darvish.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Thanks for all of the great questions. We actually have this is non-fantasy related. Why don't we end on this one?
Okay.
Bucket list to attend all major league stadiums. What are your favorite stadiums you've been to? We'll go out on
Man. So from the experience, Fenway, in terms of just like Fenway is a cool park. I like the area around it. I like walking
that. Yeah.
around. The seats suck. It's cramped. There's a lot of really bad views, so that part isn't great. Wrigley is really cool. Um, I really enjoyed going to a game in San Diego
Yeah.
when I was there a while ago. And I will say, like, I know, it's the local bias, but like Citi Field is a really cool field, man. And Citi Field is a cool field to walk around in, watch couple innings behind center field, like watch a couple innings from the bridge, move to your seats. Like it's a cool venue. And so I really like that. And then I would just tell people, like, go check out minor league games where you're at. Like, I don't know where you are, but like I've been to a lot of just like really cool minor league stadiums, and they almost always have like fun promotion nights, and some of those can be just as awesome as going to a major league arena.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the A's are going to be checking out a minor league stadium
Yes, they
for
will
a
be.
couple of
Yeah,
years coming up in
yeah,
Sacramento.
yeah, they
Uh,
will.
I like the Giant Stadium, Oracle Park in San Francisco. Is beautiful. It's awesome. I'm from Maryland, so Camden Yards is like it's where I saw a lot of baseball growing up. It still holds up. Um, Still a beautiful
Mhm.
place to visit and go to. I mean, I agree. City Field's cool. I think, like you said, like the atmosphere is really nice. The food's really good. It's a good kind of. It's a good. You don't necessarily feel like you have to be in your seat, and you can
Yeah.
still, enjoy the game. So I'd agree, but for me, Camden Yards, Oracle Park are my two favorites. I want to go to the PNC Park in Pittsburgh. That's like
Mhm.
one I really want to go to. It's just a matter of timing. Maybe when the Mets will be there, a little extra to get me out there. At some point, I want to check that out. I've also never been to Wrigley Field, so that's on my bucket list as well.
Yeah, Wrigley's really cool. PNC is up on my list. I have been by Oracle Park, but not for a game, and so I think that would be pretty high on my list. I agree with you that um, Camden is a cool spot too. I don't remember the All-Star game where, like, I think it was like Griffey Jr. in the home run derby hit the home run
Mhm.
off the building across the hall, like the hall, not the hallway, the alleyway or whatever it was.
Mhm.
I was there for that. That was cool. And I will just say, like, Coors Field, like, you're not going to watch great baseball, but there's a lot of really good breweries right around Coors Field, and so you could go early and like have fun time hopping around the breweries, and then who cares what happens at the game.
Right. I mean, yeah, Rockies fans probably are drinking a lot these days. So,
Yeah.
all right. Very good stuff. Thanks for all your questions. If somehow we missed yours, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at DJ Short. Eric is at Samsky NYC. We'll see you back here next week. Take care. Good luck in your